I can see clearly now the rain has gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's going to be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. Who remembers singing away to this Johnny Nash hit released 50 years ago? As we journey with two of Jesus' disciples on the road to Emmaus on Easter Sunday afternoon, it certainly wasn't a case of seeing clearly for them, but I would suggest the rain had very little to do with it. Just as the two disciples found that afternoon, we can also find that our vision of Jesus can be blurred. In Luke chapter 24, we see, as the disciples talked and discussed with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them, but they were kept from recognizing him. On first glance, we might think that this surely has to be a case of prosopagnosia. This condition affects up to 1 in 50 people and literally means you cannot recognize people's faces, face blindness. But there is certainly more to it than this for these two disciples. There are several suggestions as to why they were kept from recognizing him. One commentator has suggested that Satan kept them spiritually blind. Others suggest that God himself was doing so. But there was also something in the attitude of the disciples which could have blurred their vision and can do the same to us. Our vision can be blurred by despair. We read that the two disciples stood still, their faces downcast. They were in the presence of Jesus, but still there was an immense sense of sadness. They did not recognize Jesus because they were not living in the light of the resurrection. If we look at life without the knowledge of the resurrection, sadness and despair can overwhelm us too. But when our heart and our mind is open to the truth of the resurrection, we are released from the grip of despair. The beauty of the Easter story is that it reminds us that in the midst of trauma and distress, God comes and cries with us. But there are still times when our despair blurs our vision and prevents us from seeing our Comforter sitting with us. Our vision can also be blurred by disappointment. In an ironic conversation, the two disciples tell Jesus about himself. He was a mighty prophet, but everything fell apart when he was crucified. But we had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel. For the disciples, the cross was the image of the defeat of all their hopes. This Jesus was meant to liberate Israel from political oppression, and now an intense sense of disappointment filled them. Ironically, it was the cross which liberated not just Israel, but the whole world, and not just from political slavery, but from the slavery of sin. It has been said, disappointments are just God's way of saying, I've got something better. And the cross certainly proves that. But today, when life leaves us consumed by disappointment, our image of God can fade too. Doubt can also stop us seeing Christ clearly. Having revealed their disappointment concerning the cross, the disciples go on to reveal their doubt concerning the resurrection. They look into the eyes of Jesus and tell him about the reports of an empty tomb and angels declaring that Jesus really was alive. The irony is impressive and strangely comical. To doubt is okay. It is natural. But to be blinded by doubt is a scary place to be. Our doubt and unbelief can blur our vision from the truth of the risen Jesus. Thankfully, this is only part of the story. There is a cure to our blurred vision. There was a woman named Rose Crawford who had been blind for 50 years. "I just can't believe it," she gasped, as the doctor lifted the bandages from her eyes and her recovery from delicate surgery in an Ontario hospital. She wept for joy when for the first time in her life a dazzling and beautiful world of form and colour greeted eyes that were now able to see. The amazing thing about the story, however, is that 20 years of her blindness had been unnecessary. She didn't know that surgical techniques had been developed and that an operation could have restored her vision at the age of 30. The doctor said. She just figured there was nothing that could be done about her condition. Much of her life could have been different. Our sight can be restored. We do not continually have to live with a hazy image of Christ. What would the first thing you would do if you had been in a coma and your life was restored? Go and visit your family. Go to the seaside. Go and have pizza. What we would do first emphasises our priorities. Notice here the priority of the risen Jesus. He said to them, "How foolish you are, and how slow to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Did not the Messiah have to suffer these things and then enter his glory?" And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself. This is a hugely important section in understanding how Jesus reveals himself to humanity. Notice what he doesn't do. He doesn't point at himself and say, "Don't be stupid, it's me, Jesus." He doesn't draw their attention to his physical presence. Rather, he directs them to what the scriptures say about him, his suffering, and his entering into glory. Psalm 119, verse 105 reads, "Your word is a lamp for my feet, a light for my path." We need to be serious about reading the scriptures. We need to engage with them, grapple with them, and act on them. If we are to be active followers of Christ, we need to look at the bigger picture, hold on to the promises, and follow his example. As we open our eyes to the scriptures, then our experience can be that of the two disciples on the Emmaus Road. Christ will come close to us, and we will be able to say, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us?" The thing is, in spite of Jesus being on the journey with these two disciples and him personally revealing the scriptures to them, they still could have missed him. Jesus was about to continue on his journey. It wasn't until they responded to his presence by showing him hospitality and urging him to come in and eat with them that he actually revealed himself to them. This reminds us of Revelation 3 verse 20, where Jesus says, "Here I am. I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and eat with that person, and they with me." Christ is knocking on the door. Have you opened it yet? This isn't just a one-off event. Each moment we have to choose to open our eyes to Christ. The Christian life is a journey of increasing revelation and an ongoing deepening awareness of Christ. We have to actively welcome Jesus into every new situation and place we find ourselves in. If we want to grow in our discipleship, we must intentionally open our eyes to Christ. As the disciples invite Jesus to come in and share food with them, Jesus immediately takes charge. We read, "When he was at the table with them, he took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight." On that first resurrection day, the resurrected Jesus took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and gave it to the 2 disciples. As he does this, their eyes are opened. The darkness of despair, disappointment, and doubt is gone. They see the glory of the risen Jesus. They see that Jesus really is alive, so they and us can really live. Jesus loves to present himself in the midst of his people. As we gather, as we worship, as we live a God-honouring life together, he will open our eyes. We can see the risen Jesus, and our lives can be changed forever. Once our vision has been corrected and our lives have been changed, the most naturally supernatural thing is to go and share the good news with others. We have the most amazing view possible. The view of a God who loves us so much that he lived with us and he died for us, and we will be resurrected with him. Because of this, we should be overflowing with joy and excitement to share that view with others. In a world of apparent darkness and despair, let's open our eyes to an awesome view of the risen Jesus. God bless you.